back to Lear's Recon. This week, I have a really exciting guest for you, and you probably know him as ButterworthDa, but we have Sergeant Butterworth here.
Hello.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So you kind of rose to internet stardom through this caricature that you created, ButterworthDa. How did that all kind of come about? Was that, something you came up with specifically for your role in the military, or was this something you were already doing?
No, so it was definitely not something that I was doing. How this all came about is I learned all the different contact methods in recruiting school and kind of touched on social media a little bit, but I didn't realize the value in it until I went to a high school. So went to a high school, I'm standing there doing a lunchroom display like every recruiter does for every branch, and I asked this kid, I was like, hey man, what's your Facebook? And he looks at me and he goes, my mom has Facebook. So I'm like, wow, we're behind the times here. Yeah. So I asked him what he had. He told me Instagram. I then downloaded the Instagram app because I'd never had Instagram or any of that kind of stuff before. I had Facebook and I'd post pictures of my dog and family like everybody else. But I downloaded it, didn't really think much more about it. And then on the way back from MEPS during one of my first enlistments, the girl that I enlisted was on her phone the whole time. And she's sitting there and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm watching videos. And I'm like, oh, on YouTube. And she's like, no, Instagram, you old man. So I'm like, wow, is that what you use it for? And she's like, yeah, there's a lot of funny stuff on there. We get information. And then we also talk to each other, my friends and I. And so I'm like, so if you guys are going to plan to do something, that's how you communicate with one another? And she said, yes. And so I'm like, this is a great opportunity for recruiting purposes. So in the beginning, yes, I created it as a result of my job as a recruiter. I wanted to use it to try to recruit people and spread the brand of the Army National Guard, and that's what I did.
You see so many recruiters out there with their own pages and stuff,
Yep.
But I mean, you're pretty well known at this point. So as you're kind of gaining this notoriety and what you're doing is clearly working, what was that conversation with your leadership like?
In the beginning, honestly, my leadership was always pretty supportive of everything that I did. In the beginning, there might have been a lot of, thoughts that I'm wasting my time and I'm spending too much time, making videos. And to be fair, that was understandable. So the common misconception is that as a recruiter, I that's all I did is just make videos. That couldn't be further from the truth. I went to 18 high schools that were assigned to my area. The area that I recruited out of is the wealthiest county in the United States. So I did everything that recruiters are doing out there, high school visits, presentations in the schools, all that kind of stuff. So social media is just a tool that I use in conjunction with those other programs as a recruiter. And so once the results started to come in, that's when my NCOIC was like, you do you, big dog. And so, and that's what I did. I would much rather make a video that's going to reach a couple million people and spread some information and some brand awareness than I would do. I would sit at my desk and make cold calls and get hung up on by everybody's mom. Like that's not enjoyable for anybody that's done that. Yeah, it's not my favorite thing. That's for sure.
Obviously, you've been super successful in this realm. What is it about your videos, do you think, that make them resonate with, not only younger potential recruits, but you do so without alienating older recruits? Where does that universal appeal come from, do you think?
I think the key is something that I preach when I teach this across the United States to other recruiters and recruiting battalions, is that you're always a person first. Like everybody in the military and even civilians that look at the military, they assume that, hey, that guy's in the military. That's why they wear camouflage. That's why they carry weapons. They're robots. They're controlled by the government, etc. Like that's what people think, So I realize that, and I'm like, well, why don't I show them who I really am?
Right.
I love to joke around. I love to be funny. I love to make people laugh and be happy. And I hate being negative. I can't stand being negative. I can't stand complaining. Just a waste of time to me. So why not show that instead of me standing in front of a camera doing facing movements? Anybody can do that. Anybody can learn that kind of thing and do it. So I think what makes me appeal to the younger generation and their parents is that I'm a person. I'm a dad. I'm a farmer. I'm a family man. I'm in the military. I've had a civilian job. All these things, and I think that's what resonates with people.
Yeah, you're kind of peeling back that surface level layer and revealing that, one, this is who I am, but you're being authentic about it too.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Again, I think, especially the younger generation, I mean, they're getting marketed to nonstop. So I think authenticity's a pretty serious selling point.
Yeah, the days of people joining the military because a picture was taken of something and then a narrative was written about it, I think are numbered at this point. So I think,
If not over.
yeah, I think that telling a story from a personable side, of what this experience is to you and what it means for your family and what it's done for you is going to go a lot further than, a picture of something.
That's kind of interesting. Looking back at, your story up until this point, I presumed that you were out there making these videos and then the recruiter saw, they're like, hey, we can use this, not the reverse. So, I mean, what was it like, one, becoming a recruiter? What drove you to do that? And what was it like?
It's a good question. So I, before recruiting, I was a police officer. I still am a police officer. I've been one for about 14 years now.
Okay.
So that was my job on the civilian side. And again, that's a benefit of the National Guard, is that you can have two different careers and two
Right.
different retirements. So with that, as a police officer, I was a patrol officer for a couple years. And, you go on 25 to 30 calls for service by yourself a day, you're going to learn how to solve problems pretty quickly. I mean, that's what it is about being a police officer, is showing up, getting all the facts, and then finding a solution.
Right.
If there's a bad guy, you take the bad guy to jail. If it's just a civil dispute, then you solve it.
Immediate, yeah.
Exactly. So doing that, I went from there to being a gang detective. I specialized in Latino or Hispanic gangs, specifically MS-13 in this area.
Okay. Wouldn't have called that. There's
a lot.
That's kind of rough.
Yeah. So it was
Yeah.
rough. It was very violent, stabbing, shootings, violent things, right?
Yeah.
So did that for about 2.5, 3 years. From there, I transitioned to street crimes or narcotics. I did short-term drug investigations, prostitution, gambling, and
Wow.
any of that kind of stuff is what we look for.
So that's where the gray hair comes from.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's plenty of reasons why I have gray hair now. But the point being that civilian career, it kind of led me to the National Guard, not just for the job as a recruiter, but also I attribute a lot of that to my success, because that's where I learned how to talk to people.
Right.
And when I say talk to people, not just me and you sitting here talking like this, me and you, if we were out on the street, I would know how to talk to somebody to get what I want out of them.
Right.
To either confess to something, to get the information to solve a crime, or just to be more personable with them. And so those skills kind of help me as a recruiter to just be straight with people, be honest with people,
Right.
and then get information out of them or to them the way that they want to hear it.
Well, and kind of read like the body language,
Yeah.
facial expressions, all of that
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah. So I came to recruiting after one of many foot pursuits. We were doing a search warrant on a house. Guy jumped out the back door. I was chasing him over fences. He had a gun in his hand. I had a gun in my hand. Police things. So
Sure.
he jumped a fence, and when he landed, he was gone, and I was right behind him. So I realized in that moment that this is like, I could be dead right now. This
Right.
guy, I lost him, and he's
got a gun.
He's got a
He
gun,
could
and-
probably see you.
and he was probably 3 seconds ahead of me.
Right.
So we ended up catching him later with a police dog and apprehended him and took him to jail and all that. But in that moment, I realized, like, I have a 6-month-old son at home, my wife, we're just starting a family. Maybe it's time that I get a little bit safer of a job. I've had my fill of adrenaline and all that. So
That's one of those moments where your forehead's burning, like you know something's up.
yeah, exactly. So I talked to my wife about it. I talked to one of my buddies that was a recruiter in the National Guard, and he's like, yeah, it's a good job. It's difficult, but it's a good job. So I made the switch. I was on ADOS, temporary orders, for a little bit, driving people to MEPS, probably for a couple months. And then I got hired on at AGR as a recruiter, went through the recruiting school, and then hit the street.
You started up this channel. You really started to get engagement. I mean, everybody's seen your Bentley, ASMR parody.
Yeah.
You are responsible for not just recruiting in your own area, but more than 200 recruits have been attributed to your presence online. What do you recommend to recruiters, before we get into the online side? What do you recommend to recruiters who, they're going to get the boilerplate class, but above and beyond that, what can they be doing to be successful?
Do what you're supposed to be doing. Do your high school displays.
Yep.
You know, I go across the country and there's so many recruiters that are like, I don't go to my high schools because I don't need to and all that. And that's fine, but I guarantee you there's a recruiter in your area that does need those high schools. They do
Right.
need those people coming out of it. So work more as a team. If you don't have team players, then that is what it is. But at the end of the day, everything is in the manual. Everything is taught in a recruiting school, and I guarantee you there's somebody that's successful within your area. So seek them out, ask the questions, have them teach you stuff. If you don't know how to build packets, find the person that's the best at building packets and go and do it. I mean, it's easier to complain about something than it is to actually learn how to do it. So don't be the one that's going to complain about it and avoid the work. Just do the work the first time, and then it'll be that much easier for you.
You know, we've all seen horrendously cringy recruiting videos. So moving on to the social media side of the house.
I've never seen one.
You're lucky. Count yourself among the blessed. And I've got friends out there who make them, so I can say this. How should recruiters go about building their online presence? Not necessarily a persona, but just building content that does engage with folks in their area.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, but first and foremost, you need to know your area. You need to know what's popular in your area. You need to know things in your community that are up and coming, that are important to people in your area. Where do the kids hang out? I mean, all of the things that you can use to your advantage as a recruiter on the street, you can use online. So if I know the kids hang out at a certain gas station after school every day, I can use that for social media too. There are creative ways that you could use that with your RPI and things that you're doing to target that one location.
Right.
So knowing your demographic, knowing your audience is very important. I know that if I'm going to put out information on Instagram, it's going to be a little bit different than how I put information out on Facebook because the audiences are completely different.
Right.
Facebook is for old people. So I'm not going to say no cap and on God and all this kind of stuff on Facebook. You know, I probably won't say it on Instagram either, but if I
but
was
you said
going,
it here.
Yeah, exactly. you heard it here first. If I was going to say that kind of thing, I would say it on Instagram. Whereas if I'm going to say, hello, my name is Sergeant Butterworth, and I'm a recruiter with the Army National Guard, and today I'd like to talk to you about education benefits.
That is terrifying.
Exactly. But that would be on Facebook because that's designed to be for parents, right?
Right.
That's why those two audiences are completely different.
So I really want to kind of dig into that then. So what you're kind of leading into is build out a framework in which you've actually researched the platforms that you're going to before maybe you're even necessarily getting into what the demographic of your area is. So really understanding what or who each platform targets.
Yep.
And kind of building out a plan from there. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then how should recruiters go about kind of getting a gauge on their area, especially if they're coming to an area that they're not necessarily familiar with? What are some best practices in kind of figuring out what that demographic is that you're targeting and what they're interested in your area?
Ask them.
Yeah.
Ask them, go to your high schools, ask them, hey, what do you watch on Instagram? What do you look at? What shows are you watching on Netflix right now? What are you looking forward to watch at the movie theater? Blah, blah, blah. What kind of clothing do you wear? When I was doing high school visits, the number one footwear of choice were Crocs. And so then I'm like, okay, Crocs. I have Crocs. I love Crocs.
They're great shower shoes.
They are. Well, they're great everything shoes. Take it back.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah, all right, fine. I'm leaving. But anyway, so with the Crocs, I'm like, okay, all these kids have Crocs. What's a creative way that we can advertise to these kids and give them something that they want? So I created custom little Croc gibbets, little jewelry pieces that go in their Crocs for the National Guard. And so that was a huge hit because it's something that they currently have that they like that now they want from me.
Yep.
So when I'm giving them said Croc gibbet, I'm telling them that, hey, I can give you this, but I can also pay for your college.
Right.
And they're like, wow, that's a great deal. You mean I get a Croc gibbet and free education?
Obviously, talking to people, are there tools out there that kind of give you an idea of like what folks in your area are interested in?
Absolutely. all of this kind of stuff is like open source information. It's not, there are tons of paid services out there where you can find trending things and all this stuff, but there's also something called YouTube, and YouTube is where I've learned how to do all of this stuff. So if you YouTube how to find trending videos on Instagram, how to find trending videos on Facebook, how to find trending videos in a specific zip code.
Oh, really?
It will tell you how to do all that stuff.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I've learned everything from wiring my basement and finishing my basement myself to how to use a camera and shoot in 4K 120.
Yep.
Through YouTube. I haven't attended any courses or anything for that. So if infantry me can figure it out, you as a recruiter can figure that out too.
Well, that kind of leads me into my next question. I think there are a lot of recruiters who probably know all this information. They know who their target audience is. They know what interests them,
right,
but they have no idea how to navigate that, the kind of treacherous waters of, I'm in uniform, there's a certain level of bearing that I have to present.
Yep.
Who do I talk to? Who signs off on approving whatever content I create? And how do I work a camera?
Right. And the thing is, like, the common misconception is that you need all this kind of gear. You need microphones, you need cameras, but you have a cell phone. The Apple cell phones, even Android, if you're one of those weirdos that likes Androids.
The green text bubbles,
Yeah. But anyway, so those kind of cameras that are on the cell phones, they're plenty. I got to like 30,000 followers just with a cell phone. Like no audio, no other cameras, any editing software, anything like that. Like just the Instagram app and a cell phone. That's all you need.
YouTube, how to
film with a cell phone.
Right.
If you see a video that you're like, wow, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Go to YouTube and say how to film a video like this and describe what you see.
Yeah.
Guarantee you'll find a video. How to do a transition video with my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
How to do a freeze frame. How to do stop motion. How to do any of these kind of things. It's all there. It's all on YouTube.
Right.
So the next time that you're doing something super boring or driving somewhere, obviously you're not watching the video, but turn the video on.
Unless you got a Tesla.
And listen to it. You're still not supposed to do that. I'm still a cop. So listen to these videos. On my way to work, I drove an hour each day to and from work. I would listen to nothing but videography, sound design, editing, creative stuff, marketing strategies, these kind of things. Sales pitches, sales kind of stuff. I listened to this stuff on my way to work, and that's where I learned. I would just listen to it, and if something was really good, I remember pulling over a couple times so that I could like write it down.
Yeah.
So maybe you're not as crazy as me and you have that kind of itch to learn, but you should. I mean, if you're not learning something new every day, then you're wrong in my mind.
Right. And so what I'm really getting out of this is all of this is available for free.
For free. You don't have to take any classes. You don't have to listen to all these influencers online that are going to sell you some crap course to spend, 47 easy payments of $16.99 to learn these things, to learn the hashtag hack or location hack or all these things that you can learn for free. Just go on Instagram, follow your competition, follow the people that are doing it well, and try to emulate that.
Right.
And don't be afraid to reach out. If you have a question, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care who you are. It doesn't matter. If you're a National Guard recruiter, even if you're an active duty recruiter, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Send me a message and I'll help you out. I'm not going to give you all the cheat codes if you're a competitor, but if you're a National Guard recruiter, send me a message. Really, I mean, I get hundreds of messages a day, and I get a lot from National Guard recruiters, and I love to help. I mean, that's the best part of my job, and it is my job now. So send me a message if you have any social media questions. If you want help setting it up, then let me know. I'd love to.
All right, so we've kind of built out the course a little bit. Figure out who uses what platforms.
Yep.
Figure out the interests in your area and your area's demographics. Making the videos, you've got YouTube that you can turn to teach you all that you need to know on, production side and marketing side. Now, let's bring it over to, because we're doing this in uniform and there are regulations and left and right limits.
Yep.
Who should recruiters talk to when they're starting to develop out their marketing plan and like the kind of content that they want to produce to draw in this crowd?
Right.
And are there things that they can reference that will help guide them along the way?
Absolutely. So individual states might have policies for social media use for recruiting purposes or just social media in general. There's a DoD social media policy that anybody that's making it, whether it's a professional or a personal account, you should adhere to and know. The PAO in your state, your chain of command, I would check with all those people to make sure, hey, am I good to go? Is this kosher? Am I breaking any rules here?
Yeah.
I would rather err on the side of caution than just, shoot something out there and then now you're getting calls from legal and PAO and all that. Like, it's not worth it.
So what was your review process like when you created a video before you were going to release it, especially in the initial stages? How did you kind of route that? What's your best practice?
So the way that I did it, because it was kind of like uncharted territory at the time, like it really wasn't done. There were recruiters out there that were using social media and that were posting things on there, but it was always from a personal kind of account. And so that's what I did. I did a personal account, which I'm glad that I did. Like, that was the way, because now I share my family stuff on there, and that's like my whole family watches this stuff and they enjoy it. So
makes for an interesting Thanksgiving dinner.
Absolutely, yeah, because I'm trying to get everybody to do a video. But so for me in the beginning, I did these videos. I showed them to my chain of command, my NCOIC, my office partners, but really it was like, okay, I'm following the DoD social media policy. I'm not making the uniform look bad. I'm living the Army values. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. It's common sense. Don't say bad words. Don't do things that make the uniform or the Army or the military look bad. Don't be political. I mean, my check for everything, I know that probably everybody wants me to say, check with the PAO and all that kind of stuff, but really, for me, the test is, would my mother be proud of me for making this video? Would my kids watch this video? Yeah, so the test for me when I'm putting out content, I know that, obviously check with your chain of command, the PAO, to make sure that you're kosher posting that kind of stuff. But the common sense kind of check for me is my mother going to be proud that I'm making this? And will my kids, is it okay if my kids watch this?
Right.
If the answer is no to either of those things, then I'm not going to post it. And even the ones where if I'm on the fence where I'm like, how could this be construed? Could this be construed in a bad way or a negative way of any kind? I don't post it. It doesn't matter how much time I've spent making that video, editing that video. When I watch the final product through, or when my wife watches it through, if it could be construed in a bad way whatsoever, I don't post it.
Do you have an example of something like that where you kind of went through and what was the video and why didn't you post it? What was the thing that stopped you?
I'm trying to think. I don't know that I have a specific video example.
Or maybe just something that you caught in a video that you were like after the fact.
Sure, I do have one. So I did a video where it was a funny video, shocker. But it was demonstrating some military equipment that we have, and the military equipment being the printer in our office that never works. So I made a video where it was basically some classical music in slow motion of me reacting to the printer jamming for the 18th time. So I watched the video back and I'm watching it and I'm like, this is hilarious. This is really good. Like, all the slow motion of the paper coming out, looks really cool. And then I'm getting ready to post it and I watch it one more time and I'm looking at it more closely and I look at my uniform. Well, I'm a big goober and I was so excited to make this video that I put my patches and my flag on the wrong side of my uniform.
Oh.
And so I did that and I caught it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this video is perfect. Maybe people will think that it was reversed, like it was a mirrored image or something. But then I realized, it's not worth it. It's not worth it because that kind of mistake, people on the internet that are experts of everything will see that and instantly attack that. And that will be something that they just keep going for. Does it hurt my feelings when people do that kind of thing? No, not really. I could care less. But it paints the uniform in a bad light. It paints the service in a bad light. So I was like, I am not going to post this.
Right.
So that kind of thing is very important. Your uniform and your appearance and everything is to make sure you're following the standards, you're good. And so in that moment, I was like, I spent a lot of time on this. You know, this would have been a hilarious video, but it's just not worth it. I can do
Yeah.
it. I can shoot it again if I really want to.
Yeah.
Did I shoot it again?
Well, after the initial heartbreak, it's like,
Yeah,
heart's not in it
it was
anymore.
done. Yeah.
So kind of touching on the humor aspect of, you know, like, yes, your videos are super funny, but you know, yeah, you're welcome. Being in the military, I mean, it's one of the funniest places on earth. I mean, I've got an old he used to be my squad leader, and then he became my platoon sergeant, but funniest dude on the face of the planet. I mean, he can tell you about, and he knows who he is. He can tell you about the time where he was almost, you know, killed in the Battle of Mamasai in Afghanistan, and he will have you in stitches recanting the story. I mean, why is humor in uniform, do you think, is so crucial to what it is that we do?
Because it's relatable. It's a way that even in the most stressful situation that everybody can relate to. It's going to make you feel better. I'll give you an example. I was 18. I was going through the train up to go to Iraq. My first deployment in 2007. So during the train up, we were in Camp Shelby, Mississippi. A lovely, lovely place that I recommend to no one. So we were there. We had to stay out in a makeshift fob for a month or so, which was, just really great time. Think about a vacation at the beach, but there's no beach. So we did a land nav, and we had ruck march to the land nav site. Everybody's smoked. I mean, we're tired. I am going to my first point. I slide down this embankment of mud into like a stagnant, like wet little swamp area, and right in front of me, I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, and right in front of me, there's a water moccasin just looking at me like, you having a good day? So I'm like on the verge of tears, like this is not fun. This is not enjoyable. And I hear something, well, it's my squad leader coming sliding down the embankment, and he hits me, like runs into me. And now we're both in this like stagnant water with this water moccasin looking at us. And he just turns and looks at me. And in this moment is when I realize, like, this is the way to do it. He looks at me and he goes, instead of having a negative reaction, he looks at me and cracks a big grin, and he goes, I'm having a good time. That's all he said. But in that moment, I was like, I started laughing. I smiled, and I was like, me too. But if he had come in and slid down there and started complaining like, this sucks, you know, I really want to just go home, I'm not having fun, blah, blah, blah. Now I would have been all down in the dumps and had a bad attitude and been complaining about everything. So that's when I realized, like, humor is key to not only making people feel better, but sometimes even like mission success. Like you can totally change the course of everything through the use of a little well-timed comedy.
And on the off chance the water moccasin does bite you, well, then you get med leave. So there's that too,
and
right?
You could probably crack some jokes about that too. Like he did it on purpose.
So if your social media feed is anything like mine, it is full of people furiously posting baby pictures or their breakfast. So for these recruiters out there who, you know, we've kind of figured it out. They know what they want to build. They know how to do it the right way. How should they go about breaking through the noise?
Find the things that you like. Find the things that you're passionate about. If you like to cook, then post cooking stuff. Like, as ridiculous as that sounds, if you're a recruiter and that's your hobby, or maybe you're even a chef. I met a recruiter in New Hampshire that he's their marketing NCO, but he's actually like a classically trained chef. Sergeant First Class Barone.
Might know him.
But I mean, he's like using tweezers to put little flowers on food and stuff, and now he's like marketing for the National Guard. Like, how cool is that? So lean into the things that you're passionate about and that you like doing. Like, I like to cook too, so my Instagram might have a video of me in uniform doing a funny skit or even giving out actual information. But then the next one might be me doing some recipe or a parody video of a recipe, like that kind of thing. So I would say whatever you're into, if it's cars, if it's cooking, if it's your family, whatever it is, then don't just focus on the military side of it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to show who you are and what you actually do. In terms of like finding inspiration on Instagram, if all you see is breakfast pictures and baby things, you can search for other things. You can search for trending stuff. You can search for what's popular in Colorado or wherever you are as a recruiter, and then use that to your advantage. See videos that have been created in that area.
Yeah. I think that goes back to, again, that idea of coming across authentically. So,
Yeah.
And, you talk about the cooking thing, but what that immediately brings to mind is MRE recipes. Like everybody knows somebody who can take MREs and make them taste like
Yeah, absolutely.
Michelin star food.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah. But I mean, the other way to think about it is if there's a civilian job, I guarantee you there's a military job that does the same thing or very similar.
Right.
So look at it that way. If you see breakfast videos, now you're going to show all the different breakfast items that you can eat in the military. Or, hey, look, this is how we make eggs. Shaking the bag, right? So everything that you see on the civilian side, I guarantee you there's a military equivalent to it. So use that to your advantage.
An example might be car guy. Well, you've got, the mechanics who are working on all of our equipment, or, of course you've got the cooks, or if you're into law enforcement or that's the career path you've chosen, I mean, there's the military police side of the house. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels to be drawn there.
Yeah, and work together with those people too, if you can. If you're a recruiter and you have police officers, firefighters, whatever it is, any of these jobs, I mean, there's a guy that owns his own chiropractic practice in an infantry unit. He's an E4, but this guy will literally come to drill and he's like telling people what they need to do to be more healthy with their bodies and all this kind of stuff. And that is not something that you would associate with being in the infantry. Is that this guy is we have another guy that's a medical doctor.
Right.
He's a PhD doctor. He works in an emergency room, but he's a machine gunner on drill weekends. But like that kind of stuff, if you're a recruiter, use those people to your advantage. Have them come and tell their story. Have them come and tell their story at a high school. Have them wear their doctor's scrubs or whatever, uniform, or that jacket. Have them wear that to your high school displays. These are all things that you can do. Use the people around you in your unit and your soldiers to showcase them and their abilities.
Well, and you also get to kind of show that the National Guard allows you to have a civilian career alongside a military career, which, it's one of our, we as Guard members obviously recognize that as one of the strengths that we bring to the table. But
absolutely,
a lot of the folks from the outside looking in, they just don't know it exists.
Right, exactly, and that's a common thing, is that they don't know.
Right.
So how we get them to know is by putting this information out there in a way that they'll understand it.
Right. So we've kind of covered all the topics, how to lay the framework, how to identify who your target audience is, how to build content and what kind of content to build as it relates to, your area and your interests, how to get that content vetted and approved so that you're not crossing any lines, and even which platforms are best geared towards specific audiences, as you're going out and trying to draw in new members to the National Guard. Are there any other things that you might recommend to recruiters who are looking to leverage the power of social media to increase our force structure?
I would just say use the people around you to better tell their story and better tell your story, and reach out. Like, if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to the National Guard Bureau, PAO, Marketing and Advertising within HRR. We're here to help. I mean, my goal and my position is to make it easier for you to recruit, to where you're not sitting at your desk making cold calls and doing things that you don't want to do. I want you to be able to recruit easier, and for the people that we're getting to want to be here. So reach out. There's a ton of good resources out there, people that are willing to help, as well as things that you can learn on YouTube.
Do you have anything that you would like to say to the audience?
I love you all. You should be happy. No more complaining. Focus on how you can make something better and not all the negative things. I love you, Mom. I love you, Christine. Love you, Jack, Annabelle. Have a good day.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed this episode of Leaders Recon, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.